Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking to you guys about orchids. I like to call myself an orchid whisperer because I haven't killed an orchid since I was like a teenager, and I literally get my orchids to rebloom every year, if not multiple times a year. And I don't do any kind of special fertilizing. I literally just use like a Spomo Organics like balanced fertilizer. I don't even use like the orchid fertilizer, and I have really good success. As far as my opinion goes, I leave them in really bright light. That's what for me like has a lot of success in having them rebloom. I have like behind me, I have a big east-facing window. There is a big oak tree outside the window, so it does block maybe some of the light. It's probably not as harsh, but even when I lived in my old apartment, I had the west-facing window. It was pretty bright, and I left my orchids in there, and I never got any leaf burn or anything. So as far as care, what I do, I just watered this recently. So I keep it in a decorative pot, but I keep it in like the nursery pot. So I water, there is no set watering number of days. Everybody's house is different. Everybody's level of humidity and light exposure is different, which is going to in turn make the amount of water that your plant needs different. So for me, I just look at the root system. I make sure to look at all the roots, even down to the bottom. And when I see that it's completely bone dry, like all the roots have turned the white gray looking color, because you know when they dry, they turn like this white gray. And then when you water them, they turn like the green, as you can see. So I wait till they get bone dry before I water. As you can see, like the leaves are very succulent, thick, succulent leaves, which usually means that the plants like to dry out. That they're designed for that. They evolved to be that way. So that's what they usually prefer. So with what I do is what I've noticed is the more root system that your orchid has, the more leaves they will grow. So basically, the healthier the plant is. So when I water my orchids, I make sure that I water very thoroughly so all the roots are watered. So even the aerial roots, I'll make sure to water them really well, like put running water over them for a few minutes so that they all turn like the kind of the green color, to make sure that I've gotten all the roots completely saturated with water. So I make sure when I'm watering it, I look around the pot and I make sure that all the roots have gotten watered. Because if you water, say, half of the root system, and the other half of the root system is not watered, then they're going to dry up and die, and then in turn you're not going to have as healthy of a root system, and then that is not going to cause your orchid to have as many leaves or bloom spikes. So, for instance, I mentioned this in my houseplant tour video. This orchid, it had recently lost some of its leaves. By the way, I don't cut the leaves off when they start to yellow. I feel like it's like the plant sucking the energy out of the leaf. And what I've noticed, like some of the lower leaves will die when the orchid is flowering. To me, it's like they grow leaves in the summer to store energy, and then that's what gives them energy to bloom. So I never cut the leaves off until like they literally fall off. So anyways, this orchid literally I've had a few years now, 3 or so years. This orchid's been in bloom for the last year, nonstop. So this bloom spike grew, it died off, I cut it, it grew another side shoot of another 12 blooms, lasted for another 4 months, because the first bloom spike lasted about 4 months. So the second bloom spike, another 4 or 5 months, and then I cut it, and now it grew another side shoot, and is growing another, and then another bloom spike on this side. I'm like, this orchid is crazy. It literally does not stop blooming. And it's already started growing a new leaf, like, this spring, which is weird because usually they don't grow leaves and bloom spikes at the same time from what I've researched. But it lost a few of its lower leaves recently. They turned yellow and died off, but to me that's like the plant is sucking the energy out of the leaves to start more blooms, which I don't mind the blooms, so hey, I'm happy with it. I mean, the foliage doesn't look as hot and healthy as it did because it had a lot more leaves, but Also, when I pick out orchids in the store, I always grab the ones with the healthier root systems and the most amount of leaves, because the more leaves, like basically, the more blooms you're gonna get. And if you look at the orchids in the stores, like the orchids with like multiple bloom spikes will be the ones that have like the most leaves and the healthiest root systems. Like the ones that only grow one bloom spike, they usually won't have as many leaves. So this orchid has like multiple bloom spikes. Has one, two, tons of flowers. This bloom spike is just starting to bloom. It's like not even completely. As you see, there's some buds still on there. But yeah, so that's my advice for orchids. I treat them like succulents. Let them dry out completely in between watering. Make sure when you're watering, you're saturating the entire root system. That way, the root system, the more roots that are alive, the healthier the plant's going to be, the more blooms you're going to get. Just don't overwater them. I mean, even if they'll do better off letting them dry out over dry than to overwater. Like, you can go longer without watering than to overwater. That's what's going to kill them. And also, my other word of advice would be put them in bright light, especially when they're blooming. They need tons of light. So put them in a windowsill. Like, don't put them far from a window when they're blooming. You bring them home from the store. They're not gonna. The blooms are probably gonna fall off, and even if it does have some buds that haven't opened, they're probably gonna like dry out and fall off. Like they're not gonna bloom. That's my success. Like I got this one, and like it was only like a few flowers bloomed. I made sure to put it right in my east-facing windowsill, and all the buds bloomed. And then the second bloom spike that had no flowers have already bloomed like 4 or 5 flowers, and I hadn't lost any buds on this orchid. 0 buds, you know. And sometimes, you know, I've brought home an orchid and lost a couple buds. Like sometimes the transition will just make the plant drop some of the buds, and you'll lose some, but you shouldn't lose the plant or all the blooms, just like maybe a couple. But I think that's just kind of a transition. This little guy fell out. I dropped my variegated orchid when I was watering the plant it was on top of, and yeah, I'm sad the bloom spike fell off. But good news is that I put it in water and one of the flowers actually bloomed. So maybe it'll stay like this as a cute little decor piece for a while, a few days or a week or so anyway. But yeah, that's my advice on orchids. I just use, like I said, the balanced Espoma balanced houseplant fertilizer. So when I water, I just water all the root system and stuff with the liquid fertilizer and mixed with water. So, oh, and I do water the leaves. Like I rinse the leaves underside and the tops of the leaves thoroughly. So I make sure to saturate the entire plant. But just when you do that, like dump the plant upside down and make sure there's no water sitting in the crown of the plant. So that could cause rot. So yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know. Like I said, I call myself the Orchid Whisperer. I haven't killed one in years. Have had really good success with orchids. Gotta love them. Beautiful plants. All right, that's it. You have a wonderful day. Happy planting.